Welcome to Just Men, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. It's his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Mario Coleman. Mr. Coleman, welcome to Just Men.
How you doing, Jeff?
Oh man, it's a tremendous blessing to have you on, man.
Absolutely.
I tell you, you are going to take the roof off of our show today, man, and we're just
want to
excited.
contribute, man. I just want to be a contributor, man. And I was real excited to be on the show because, you know, I've worked behind the scenes, and I really enjoy the body of work that you've created consistently, man. It's something that, like I said, I really admire. So I'm excited, man. You know, you called me. You know, my schedule was kind of twisted up, but I made a way, man, because this is real important, man. I really look forward to this. I always wanted to do the show, so
wow,
here I am, man.
That's awesome, man. Here you are, and so with that, man, you know, I got to dive deep starting it off.
Oh, absolutely.
Man,
Let's
we
go.
got so much.
Let's go.
There's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience through this, man. And one of the things that you and I have been wrestling with, and I want to hit it hard, man,
yeah,
and that is in terms of fatherhood.
Yeah.
You talked about off the set growing up without knowing the identity of your father.
Absolutely.
And I raised the question, how did that affect you psychologically, man? And so let's go there and just express what's on the heart.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, I think what happens is with a lot of young men, at first, like I mentioned, growing up where I grew up in Chicago in the projects, a lot of my friends didn't even know who their dad was. So it was almost kind of like we didn't really know that, you know, we were broken or this was a situation that would lead to some degree of dysfunctionality. We just thought it was just normal. And but as you grow up and you start to kind of ask these questions that can't be answered, and I can give you a great example because my son right now, Mario Jr., calls me and is like, "Hey, Dad, you know, why am I doing certain things? You know, like certain things kind of trigger anger in me, or, you know, well, that's what I used to do. You know what I mean? And I got these things. Sometimes I just kind of like want to be by myself and do A, B, and C. I said, well, those are the things that I used to do. So that's where you get that from, you know. And what that made me kind of reflect back on is that, you know, some of the things I have, some of the ways that I have, I don't have nobody to call and try to get these answers from. You know what I mean? So I guess what happens is that, you know, you run into a degree of suppression, you know, because you don't want it to break you. You know what I mean? You know, the whole man thing and this, that, and the other. And like I was saying, we don't really have a forum where, you know, men can kind of get together. We don't have a daddy. And, you know, how do we navigate through this thing? You know, I would say one of the most important things for me that I learned is that you got to make sure that this pain that you're feeling, this loss that you're feeling, isn't translated to your kids. The cycle has to end with me. You know what I mean? So my daughter, my sons, you know, they know who their father is. There were times when, you know, in your early 20s, you're just out there moving around. But there were times where, you know, I was moving so much when I was living in LA that, you know, at times my number was changing so much, but my mother could always call one of my kids' mothers, you know, and say, hey, I don't know where Mario is. Do you know where he is? Yeah, because they were always the first ones to get my information so they could always stay in contact with me. You know what I mean? So for me, that was a way of kind of, you know, you can't undo the past through whatever you do in the present and the future. But what I wanted to do is not repeat the past. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So through them, I find some degree of I guess satisfaction or some degree of relief knowing that they know who their dad is. You know, even certain things like and I think that the brothers in our circle and our age groups need to really understand, man, how critical it is for you to tell your child, well, hey, we're going to the movies, or I'm going to pick you up at a certain time and you don't show up. Yeah. I mean, you just have no idea how that impacts a child growing up, you know. But the fact that when you say that you come through, because there's been some times, you know, baby mama drama or whatever. Well, did you make sure your dad said what time he's going to come and what time did your dad call? And I remember my son saying, he's going to be here, Mom. He said he was going to be here. He's going to be here. Why are you tripping? And that made me really feel good inside. That was my other son. I have like 2 sons and a daughter. And there's just been times where, for whatever reason, their mothers were maybe, I came into question by their mothers, and they actually defended me because of my track record of doing what I said I was going to do for them. Wow. And like I said, man, we can, in doing that, you can't undo the damage that's been done. And sometimes I wonder, well, it is damage. You know what I mean? It is damage. I would say that, and especially as men grow up and they understand the importance of wisdom and rationale, and to be able to reflect back on scenarios, like I said, my son being able to call me and ask me these questions about why his behavior is certainly what it is. And I'm like, wow, man, I felt good to have that conversation and answer those questions. But, man, I ain't got nobody to call and answer, And I think the other thing that happens, man, that is that goes by the wayside is psychologically we're always looking for a role model. You know what I mean? And we don't even realize it, but for a man to come and, give us some knowledge, take us under their wing, we psychologically gravitate toward that. So for me, it was great that I had, like my aunts and everything had, they were like my Aunt Daisy was married. And so like my Uncle Clarence was like my role model, went to work, handled his business, real cool and laid back, So I referenced him a lot. But on the other side of it, I was kind of steered into, kind of like a life of crime because, these other guys kind of took the time to mentor me, and I gravitated toward that. I mean, you're always kind of, what it's like, man? It's like you're always looking for your dad in these older individuals, and you don't even realize it. But it's like when they sit down and take the time to talk to you, man. You're okay. It's not my dad, but you know what I mean. This is a man that's taking the time to talk to me and give me something, whether it's something I don't need or whatever. At that point, the most important thing is that they've taken the time to do that.
Wow, that's beautiful. I know it's awesome you talk about suppressing. I know as men, many times we do suppress things to the point that suppression becomes depression.
Right,
to the point that it begins to be dysfunctional even for ourselves. It's like a cancer that we invite into our body, and it begins to just destroy us one organ at a time. And one of the things that I know that as men, many times we try to find significance through the approval of others, and maybe through men. Talk a little bit about how, if not at all, you talk about these individuals who have shaped your character, shaped your ideals of what a man is.
Right.
And some of them were not necessarily we would call above bar in terms of their behavior, but we still wanted to emulate that because it did give us a sense of worth, a sense of value. And so talk about that, and then talk about how you make the shift, where you begin to realize that, wait a minute, this behavior and these decisions I'm making is still is a detriment to me now, because now I know I've learned, and so now I need to change the way I do things, even though I learned previously the wrong way from others.
Well, I think, man, the most important thing is that I had a strong foundation growing up. I was surrounded by some really incredible women that I highly respected, man. They were intelligent, they were strong, they were independent. I mean, they became my point of reference for how I view women, what I'm attracted to in a woman. And so they played a pivotal role in giving me a point of reference of life. I mean, because I think a lot of times we can only have, growing up, all that we have a lot of times is what's around us to kind of figure out how to navigate through life. So my mother, my aunts, my godmother, they were all in the church. My godmother was actually responsible for me being baptized a Catholic. And then my mother and my aunts, and they just stayed in church. That was just their thing. So I had a really good idea of how it is to live right versus how it is to live in turmoil, and the repercussions of that psychologically that you have to navigate through on a day-to-day basis when you got turmoil as your point of reference. I mean, just the tension, the drama, and all of that versus being able to go home and be at peace. You know, mom's in praying, or mom's just has a little bit more wisdom. Mom is at home because she ain't out in the street drinking or this, that, and the other. Mom is coming home making sure that I'm straight and all that. And that became a point of reference of being able to take care of home. You know what I mean? Understanding, and on a deeper sense, the whole thing of teamwork. But just the fact that, you know, your mom is looking out for, the fact that my mother was single and was able to send me to Catholic school all the way up until 8th grade, you know, to me, when you're doing it, it's like, I got to wear the uniform. But as you grow up, you realize the sacrifices it took for her as a single woman to have to pay tuition, to pay rent, to pay bills and everything because she wanted a better life for me, you know. So those things that I probably took for granted while they were transpiring, as I grew up and I started becoming involved in different influences as in crime, right? I didn't, you know, some people get into, you know, hustling or whatever for different reasons. Like for some people, it's an opportunity to have these things in order to attract the attention of women. I didn't have no problem with the women. It was just an intriguing life for me. You know what I mean? So I called it. And you have to really watch what you ask for out here in this world, man, because you can call it into existence. So I called it into existence. And in doing that, you know, I had an opportunity to meet these two gentlemen that, you know, everybody loves to take me under their wing and kind of guide me. You know, I'm the young kid or whatever. I was 17, quit school, working on the railroad, you know, making money, moving that into drugs and this, that, and the other. So they was like, well, young man, let me show you something. If you're going to be a criminal, we're going to show you the right way to be a criminal. You know what I mean? We're going to show you how to navigate through this thing and not get caught. You know, if you're going to do something illegal, you need to be invisible. You need to understand the strategies of what you're doing, but you also need to understand the repercussions of doing things that are stupid, that will get you in jail, that will get you exposed or whatever. But I would say probably the most important thing that they gave me is don't let this life be who you are. You know what I mean? This is a game that's just being played. Don't let it play you. Don't let it make you. Never have anything involving this life that you can't walk away from. That's the discipline of being in this life. Being able to not put it above your self-worth, you know, not finding the value that you feel that you can't do without. So in that, you know, even though I was successful, you know, I just found myself, man, saying, man, if my mother knew what I was doing, she would be really kind of disappointed in me. I mean, you know, there was no reason, you know, I was doing my own thing, had my own, there was no reason for me to have that in the back of my mind, but it was there. So eventually, man, I just realized, and I've talked to a whole lot of brothers, that we get out there in the game and do whatever we do just to realize at some point that we need to go back. We need to square up and just have a life where we ain't got to be looking behind our shoulders. We ain't got a whole bunch of illegal activity that we're involved in, because, you know, one thing leads to another. You know what I mean? If you're out there in the game and you're doing this crime thing, you got some shady people that you're dealing with, man, and they can just take you out because they like what you wearing, they like what you got, or they don't like what you wearing, or they don't like what you got. There's no rules in this thing. You know what I mean? And so at some point, you know, you reach a point where because of your training or because you've had some alternate things to reference, that you start weighing the scales and you just ask yourself, is this really important? You know, my boys are getting killed, you know, or they're going to jail, this, that, and the other. And it's kind of like a game that really can't be won, man. You know, if you think about it, all the cats that you know that were way up here in the game, 10 to 15 years later, they way down there. You know what I mean? Because it's not really founded on the principles, and I just say it's not really founded on the principles of godliness and things that you can put out there and enrich people's lives and get something back in return. It's really about taking. You're living a lie, you're living a delusion, and everything that you do is really feeding in to that lie. So how can you win? You know, it's not built, that thing is not built to win in. It's built to destroy you. You know.
Wow, that's beautiful. Man, you're hitting on a lot of things. You know, I gotta go there.
Come on.
Particularly with men, at what point do men begin to take responsibility and accountability of their actions? I know a lot of times men will say, well, it's because of my environment or because of my absence of a father. And I understand, like you said, there is damage there, and we understand that there is damage. But then when does the transformation, when there's a sort of a paradigm shift in your thought process to where you kind of like, as they say, man up, when you begin to walk in a level of awareness and consciousness to realize that in spite of these things happen, I still can be a man, say, after God's heart. I can be a man who is accountable, a man whose word is bond, you know, a man who can stand and be responsible. At what point does that shift take place?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, because I guess to go into it, there's just really different parts of the criminal element, or, you know, the hustle game, you know. For me, I actually hustle with women hustlers. And a lot of people don't know that there are, in this thing, that there are women hustlers that are like, they're kind of like magicians because they don't have the brawn or whatever. So their thing is all mental. You know what I mean? They're like illusionists. They just create these illusions and different things like that, and men buy into it. And if you go down through history, you know, I mean, empires have been built and have fallen behind the strategic moves of women, you know. So, but these type of women, I'll say two things about them. One is those weren't the women that I was raised around. Now, I would say that my godmother was kind of a hustler. She actually taught me how to cheat at dice. And, you know, she drank and ran policy. She ran numbers and all of that, right? But, you know, she showed me how to do that, but I just remember her love for me. You know what I mean? That was a dominant element. But being out there in that thing, man, you have to be ruthless, you know, because everybody out there has an agenda, a dark agenda, you know what I mean? And you're either, at some point, you're either victimizing somebody or being victimized by somebody, you know? So after a while, man, you have to look at that. And at first it's kind of, it's intriguing, it's fun, you know, it just arouses these thought processes in you that you never had to deal with before. But then after a while, man, when you just start weighing the variables, depending on, like I said, for me, I didn't need that to make me. You know what I mean? I was already confident in who I was, and as I moved into this thing, I was actually becoming very successful at it. So I was, you know, I guess if I didn't have the training and the upbringing that I had, I could have got caught up in it. But like I just said, I just looked around and I just said, you know what, I just don't like this situation, and I don't need it to feel good about who I am. You know what I mean? I might be broken, but I'm not that broken that I need to have this degree of deception around me to, I mean, this lie, I always knew it was a lie. So I didn't allow it to become my truth. I didn't allow it to define me and to take me to the point where the darkness became my light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understood it because a lot of times what happens, man, is that you get so deep into the game that you start playing it on yourself. You know, so you have to be able to define that thin line and say, okay, you always have a choice. So as I looked at this thing and I reevaluated it, you know, I just decided that I didn't want to do it anymore, you know. But in saying that, you know, that means that two things has to happen. First of all, you have to separate yourself from all those individuals that you dealt with, because you can't be halfway in, halfway out. You know what I mean? You're either in there or you're out of there. So I had to do that. And then second of all, I had to go through the storm of karma, you know, and you know, just because you decide to stop doing a thing, dirt, running cons and everything, that doesn't mean that because Tuesday I decided I don't want to be a con man or a crook anymore, that Wednesday everything's going to be okay. You know, you got to bear the, you have to bear or drink the residue of all of those years that you put that dirt out there and you hurt those people, man. And a lot of times, if you're not wired right, you don't understand why that is, it's easy to play the blame game, you know, because, and so I had to have a talk. That was my first talk with God. It was basically like, okay, look, man, I understand that I did some foul stuff, and I know that I got to pay for it. So you go ahead on, take me through the storm. But after the storm is over with, you ain't got to worry about me no more. You can take me off the books, no more hustling, no more drugs, no more nothing. I'm just going legit, but I realize I got to walk this path that I created, you know? And and then the other thing too, man, is as you move away from this and you see people that are still in this, you start to see how it deteriorates them, how they decline, or, you know what I mean? So you just start seeing, you know, the choices that you make and how much they have cost other people who haven't made that choice. And the people, like you said, you know, how did that define how I treat, you know, women in that sense? I mean, even the women, you know, what I found out is that even the women that are out there as hustlers for whatever reason, they still have that element in them that wants to be nurtured. I mean, they respected the fact that I could still, even when no matter what, that I could treat them like a woman. So a lot of times it's like, look, you know, I don't feel like, I just want to be with somebody who recognizes the woman in me, even for just for a moment. Let's just pretend, because I'm gonna have to go back out here and do this thing. And that's a commonality that I found in all women. It's just like, I have this saying where, and I've said it to women, and no one's ever disputed. And it might sound crazy to a man where it's like, all women are the same, but yet completely different. You know, they have this commonality that bonds them as women, but their uniqueness is completely their own mold that makes them completely unique. You know what I mean? And so I found that commonality. But you know, like I said, man, it's a much better life not having to look behind your shoulder, not having to worry about, you know, something that you did to somebody and they're coming back for you, or their brother's coming back for you, or whatever, man.
That's good. That's good. I know in our last closing minutes or so, there's something that's on my heart, and it just came to me as you were speaking that I wanted to ask you,
Sure.
and I know we're going to have to expound on it later, but I want to hit on it because we talked a little bit behind the scene on, particularly and talk about why men don't go to church and why men are involved in terms of that. But the word that came in my heart as you were speaking was, I need to ask you this, and you expound on it, because I don't even know what it means, but I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
That's the thing. I'm like, where did that come from?
You getting signals?
Yeah,
above,
I'm a signal. Somebody got a bump in my back, said, hey, ask him that, man. But,
okay.
But is God a hustle?
I think, you know, God is a hustle to those who don't understand the power of God. I mean, God is a hustle for those who are really liars, man, and using it as a hustle, you know. But you can't have a hustle without people that's buying into the hustle, you know, meaning that when you're talking about these false prophets or whatever that are out here doing this thing, that's basically a performance. every Sunday that they go to. But, you know, what happens is you find out that they're constantly being exposed. They're, oh, this man, how come why did he commit suicide? Or why did he get caught with this man? Or, you know what I mean? They're constantly being exposed. And I'll tell you something, man, I didn't have guns pulled out on me. I'm not afraid to die. But I'll tell you one thing I am afraid of, and that's to play with God, man, because you just can't do that. You know, there's some things where you have to draw the line because, like I said, I've had karma come down on me. And so these people that are using this whole thing. But, you know, the thing is, man, is that, you know, we're conditioned to kind of to live lies anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, if you go back to the Bible, you know, if Jesus was the truth, why did they do him like that? I mean, the stuff that's, I've seen horror. Have you ever seen anything in a horror movie that compares to what they did to Jesus? Mm-hmm. I mean, the crowns, I mean, they did, I mean, so, and I tell people, you know, well, I want everybody to like me. I said, Jesus couldn't even get a breakdown here with these people, man. So, so that's what I'm just saying. It's all hypocrisy, and it's been hypocrisy, you know. But the people that are looking for the lie or buy into the lie. But the people that are for real, man, they're gonna look past that. I mean, even it's kind of like being in a bad public school. You know what I mean? The kids are bad, but then you have these few kids that can go in there and be on the honor roll. So I just think that on that particular thing, that it's really based on your relationship with God. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing. That's what's going to bring you peace. You know, for me, it's like, I don't have to, you know, because people say, well, you know, if you don't go to church, you ain't going to go to heaven. I said, you know, I think that if God can create multiple universes, you know, beyond what we even know, every blade of grass, every leaf on a tree, on every planet, I think he can figure out if I genuinely love him. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I need to decipher or even explain my relationship with God to another person who is trying to condemn me because it doesn't follow his particular protocol. When God even said, you know, it's not about passing judgment. I'm not saying it, you know, the way, but it's like, you know, for me, if I have peace, I'm not hurting anybody or anything like that. That's the most important thing. And I think my journey has been really relevant to me, you know, because I talk to people and I've been around people that go to church, you know, all the time, and they're on medication, they're on this, they're on that. And for me, God has allowed me to say, this is my temple. This is the first gift that I've given you. It's your body. So take care of that, because that allows you to be able to do works. That allows you to be able to be a mentor. That allows you to lead by example. And so that's pretty much how I see it, man. You know, like these cats that are out here doing the magic show every Sunday, I mean, they gonna get it in the end, man. I just, you know,
all right.
That's how we do
it.
Yeah.
Again, I tell you, you are God's best. We appreciate you being on the program.
Oh, definitely,
and we
man.
will continue to move forward and look forward to the next time you're on.
Oh, absolutely, man.
Right,
absolutely, man. Half an
Stay
hour ain't
focused.
long enough.